Hello, everyone. Got a call from Bernice King. I thought it was a joke. She was inviting me to come and give a tribute to her father, Martin Luther King, at Ebenezer Baptist Church for Martin Luther King Day this year. And it wasn't a joke. I actually went. But I was deeply honored to be with the King family then, and I'm going to give a version of that speech here in my hometown. So thank you for the introduction. Like I said, my name is Olga Bautista. I live on the far southeast side of Chicago. I'm the oldest of 3 children to immigrants from Mexico. I live in one of the most polluted neighborhoods in the city of Chicago, where I can tell you that today, Dr. King's call for a social and economic justice rings loud and rings true. I am very deeply honored to be here, to be among so many battle-tested freedom fighters, all the panelists, and to be on the same program with people like Ms. Bevel and Chairman Chapman. Thank you to all the organizers that made today happen. I am from a corner of Chicago that's located near the southern part of Lake Michigan and the Calumet River. It's a community that once was the hub of the steel industry, but those steel mills are gone today, and it's ground zero for a geopolitical battle against 2 chronic polluters that are located right on the banks of the Calumet River, S.H. Bell and KCBX. KCBX is a company that's owned and operated by the infamous Koch brothers. Our struggle for environmental justice in South Chicago has led us to join the fight to protect the planet from polluters that contribute to global warming. About 2 years ago, I was approached by my fellow environmental justice leaders who asked me to run for city council here in Chicago. We had led the fight against the toxic poisoning of our community. We had taken up for starvation wage workers struggling to build a new union movement. We had advocated for the undocumented, the poor, the elderly, and the unemployed. Our ancestors had shed blood, sweat, and tears to make the steel and build this nation, only to be abandoned to poverty, homelessness, and now a toxic legacy. And while I didn't get the most votes, we did change the conversation. We talked, as did King, about poverty. And we helped build a new movement uniting genuine grassroots leaders together for the battles that lie ahead. You know, when people think about Dr. King in Chicago, they think about the vicious reaction he encountered when he marched through certain neighborhoods. In 1966, King and his courageous followers braved hostility, worse in his opinion than anything he had faced in the South, to win an unprecedented agreement from the Chicago Realtors to abide by the nation's fair housing laws. But over 50 years later, the promise of fair housing has, for millions of Americans of all colors, devolved to no housing at all. 50 years after Dr. King declared that, quote, the curse of poverty has no justification in our age, and called for the nation to civilize itself by the total, direct, and immediate abolition of poverty, the Columbia School of Public Health estimates 124,000 people die in America every year because they are poor. But it doesn't have to be this way. Why, when we have the technological capability to build a prefabricated home in 45 minutes, should anybody have to lay their head to rest at night in a cardboard box? Why, when the Central Valley of California alone can feed this entire country, should anyone ever go to bed hungry? This is the inexcusable social contradiction that Dr. King charged us to do something about. And I am very inspired today to return to the southeast side of Chicago and to continue that struggle to unify the dispossessed of all colors, creeds, and circumstances in a new Poor People's Campaign, to create the, quote, new and unsettling force that Dr. King envisioned and for which he gave his life. I'll end with part of a prayer that actually Toby and I heard at Lutheran Church of the Trinity in Bridgeport during a retreat earlier this year. Trust that together, united, no barricade, no blockade, no principality or power is going to stop our movement, our motion, our march toward a liberated world. May the spirit of joyous rebellion inhabit our hearts and fill us with an unending desire for liberation, knowing as we go forward together, we go forward in love, we go forward in power, and we widen the path that those who love justice and desired liberation have marched for centuries before us, marching toward the hope of a liberated world. And as we go together in power and in love, and nobody will ever be able to turn us around. Amen. Thank you very much.